On this episode of Travels with Bill, we're at the Petroforms in the Whiteshell Provincial Park. We're going to see them from the air, we'll see them from the ground as well, and we'll tell you a little bit about why these stones are here and why it's such a special spot, so stick around. Well, our journey starts on Highway 307 in the Whiteshell Park. We're just west of Batula Lake. Nice big parking spot here and some signs when you first get here too that kind of explain what you're going to see. What's important to know about the site is this really is a sacred area. There's a lot of people that come here to be quiet and calm, and it's certainly not a place where you play loud music or do any of that sort of weird stuff. In fact, sometimes when you drop by here, you'll find there's religious ceremonies on the go. When there are, probably best to just come back later. We've traveled down this little path through the forest, and it's actually quite a cute little path. It's not huge, but if you walk slowly down it, you get to where you're going. But you also start to get a feel for the whole area. This is a place of solitude, and really, it's a spiritual experience. They say the more times you come here, the more spiritual you'll feel when you're here. And certainly if you spend half an hour, maybe an hour wandering around looking at everything, by the time you're done, you'll be in a much different mindset than maybe the hustle and bustle you were in when you first got here. We'll see our first petroform in a moment, but before we get to them, what we find really is, well, it's a big rock, but it's a very special big rock as you walk into the site. Now, I know a lot of people that come here have all sorts of different religious backgrounds, and it'll depend how you see this based on your background. I would call this kind of an offering stone, but you might have a different interpretation. Essentially what's going on here is people are leaving something that's valuable to them at the site to kind of, well, express that they were here and that they made some sort of sacrifice. So we see a lot of tobacco there, obviously, but we see some money as well. We even see some kids' toys, because in theory, of course, you can teach your kids here about, a whole different way of thinking of the world, leaving something behind that's of value to you to sort of remember your time here and remember the people that have come before. The Anishinaabe and the other First Nations have been coming here for hundreds, well, really thousands of years. In fact, we don't know for sure exactly who built this site, who laid it all out, but we do know they did a very good job of it, and probably it was something that happened over a long time. But here's our first petroform. Now, I would say this one looks like a turtle, but even the petroforms themselves are kind of up to interpretation. It depends how you're looking at it and what you're thinking about for what you're actually seeing here. There's different animals. There's certainly some human-looking petroforms. There's a big long thing that I would say is a snake. But part of being here is walking through and sort of making your own decisions about what they are and what the people were trying to tell you about. If you translate the First Nations term for this area, what you come up with in English is place where the spirit sits. And you actually get that feeling as you wander around here that this is a very, very special space. Now you'll notice there's a lot of dead grass around the edge here. This entire area is on the bedrock that's exposed, and because it's such a dry year when we're visiting, there hasn't been a lot of rain. Much of that grass is only an inch or two thick, laying on top of the rock. And where you have grass without any soil under it, just rock, well, if there isn't rain, pretty soon you end up with pretty dead looking grass. Now the idea, of course, is you would come and wander through here, look at all of these, and sort of just, well, relax and think, and maybe even do a little praying as well. As you get a little further into the site, you find a really neat part of it. There's this big circle, and it's really set up kind of as, well, I would call it a shrine. This is where you'd find a lot of ceremonies being held, and I guess to each person the ceremonies are a little bit different, right? What exactly they're for. But you'll certainly see some neat things here. So we'll get a little closer in so you can see it. Walk around a bit of the circle. Everything you're seeing here, of course, is made of those rocks again that have been brought here and laid out. Now, if you can imagine, there's snow and ice. It doesn't really move the rocks. So if you put a rock here one year, it'll be there the next year. If you put a rock here 50 years ago, it would still be here. If you put a rock here 10,000 years ago, well, it could very well still be here. That seems to be a lot of what's going on at the site, is much of this is very, very old. Now, there was some vandalism a couple years back. Someone came along and rearranged some of the rocks. Well, that certainly didn't thrill anyone at all, because you're not supposed to touch the rocks. They had some pictures of it, and they've put the rocks back as best they could to where they had been. But when you're here, obviously, you're not supposed to be touching. You're supposed to be observing, walking around. But playing tic-tac-toe with the rocks, absolutely not something you should be doing. See the inside of the circle here? There's a couple spots where you can see they've made little bits of fires, but there's also lots of stuff. Here's some painted rocks. That's about saving the children, of course. You'll see some of that throughout the site. You'll also see some red dresses and some clothing. So this is 2021 when we're visiting. Of course, top on everybody's mind right now is the whole idea of the missing children, maybe from residential schools. Remember how all that was playing out? They're doing ground penetrating radar, finding grave sites that aren't marked, and a lot of concern about that. So you'll see some of that here, but you'll also see red dresses. You'll see some other things. Well, the red dresses, of course, relate to missing and murdered Aboriginal women. Now, in theory, one red dress would represent one person missing, but unfortunately so many are that one red dress actually represents quite a few people. Hey, look what's under the rock here. Isn't that kind of cool? You'll see things like this all over the site where something's just snuck in. Now that, of course, very, very important to somebody. Other people may come along and say, well, that's not the symbol I would use in my religion. But part of the area is learning to share and accept everyone together. Now, the folks from the Manitoba Park system do some guided tours here, so that's one option. But there's also other options. There are people that offer probably more in-depth tours would be a better way to put it. There's some leadership training stuff that can be done here. If you do a quick Google search for the Bannock Point Petroforms, you'll find a lot of information about that. What we're looking at here, well, I would call it the snake, and you might have a different view of that, but certainly to me it looks like a really big long snake, especially when we're in the air. It looks like it's got that little tail of a snake, kind of cute. The head, I don't know, isn't necessarily the head of the snake, but it looks like it. This is a fairly big area. You want to bring a bottle of water with you when you come, especially if it's a hot day, and plan for that half hour to an hour type thing when you're here. You'll see a few flies flying around us. We're actually filming really early in the morning here, and the reason we're filming so early is we wanted to be at the site when there wasn't anybody trying to, have a ceremony or have a private time here. So we got here before anybody else did. That part you saw at the beginning of the film was actually filmed later on in the day when we were all done and there were some other visitors. But you'll see here, for the most part, you don't see people in it. Once in a while, just towards the end, you will see a few people walking around as others were starting to arrive. Early morning's a really cool time to come because it is a lot quieter, not many people around. But it's actually fairly quiet almost any time of the day. It's just a matter of people here and thinking and, well, not necessarily yelling and screaming and doing a lot of talking. Right now we're still kind of out in the main part that's really open and is more rocky. Here you see another spot where people have been leaving some things behind. Now it probably goes without saying, but if you're coming here you shouldn't be picking anything up and taking it away. Everything that's here is meant to be left here. That includes the money. Yeah, you could probably get rich off some of it, but it's meant to stay here and be an offering to the spirits. And whether that's, God or the spirit or whatever you call that person, every religion kind of has a different name for it, right? There's always that something in religion that is the creator, as it were, and that's where the offerings are really going for here. There's one of those red dresses we were talking about. Now you can tell this one's been here a little while, and you'll see that in the site. Some of the stuff that's here has been here a while, and seeing it weathered is almost part of the experience because it gives you that view again of how sacred this is, that people are coming here and leaving things behind. And I know over time they get looking maybe a little bit ratty and such, but that's just a sign that someone was here very long ago and wanted to be part of it. When you wander off to the edge of the site, we're going to do that, kind of get into the trees. It changes from being flat rock where you have the petroforms. Well, I guess I would call it a bit of a shrine, and you might call it a different term for that too, but see how there's things tied in the trees? Now, these were generally put here as part of ceremonies and stuff, so you may not have seen people come and put them just randomly. These all have meaning. They were all done as part of something that was happening at the site. And then, of course, they got left behind too, and so they're here for everybody else to look at. As with everything else, you shouldn't be moving it around because it's meant to stay like it is. But wandering through the trees is kind of cool. You saw how those cloths were pretty brand new looking we just saw. Well, as we get a little bit further in here, they're not so new looking at all. They're getting a little bit older, so these have obviously been here longer. I don't know how long it takes for the stuff to look weathered. Certainly it's more than a day or two. I would think it's been months, but you can tell some stuff's been here probably still the same summer we're in, but some of it very clearly has been here for a year or more, maybe several years as well. Right about now, you're going to be starting to think to yourself, what if I get lost? Because we're wandering in the bush. Well, pretty much anywhere you go in the bush part, if you look back, you can still see sort of that open area. Once you get into the open area, sure, you have to wander around a little bit to find your way out, but if you stick to the open area, you won't really get lost. And if you sort of follow around in a big circle, eventually you will end up back at that first stone we saw. From there, you can see the path, and just down the path, you end up at the parking lot. Check out these neat little flags. Isn't that kind of cool? They're weathered a bit. It's tough to see what they were trying to say, but they look so cool in the tree, all the different colors there. Well, colors can represent a lot of things. The red dresses, of course. Here's some beads. They're kind of cool. A little bit of a pot thing going on there. But you see there's even some beads just in the grass. Now, again, those have obviously been here for a while because they're mixed into the leaves that would have fallen last fall. You may notice I don't have a lot to say necessarily about what you should do when you're here. Wander around, sure. Take some time, yes. Bring some water with you. But the rest of it's kind of up to you because you will have your own interpretation. I've been here 3 or 4 times. Ooh, look, there's an Every Child Matters shirt in the tree. That's kind of cool, eh? It's so small, but it's there too. Just like the red dress is making a big statement and being important to someone. You can see it's getting a little later in the morning. There's some people wandering by there. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, every time I come here, it's been different. The first time you come, you're just in awe of all this stuff, and then the next time you come, it's kind of a different experience. And as you come more and more times, it gets to be, well, I do think it's true, more and more spiritual, because you sort of wander around and just look at things, and you find yourself thinking about what's been, the people that have come before, the people that are here now, and then, of course, once we're gone, thinking about the people that will come and visit this after we're but a memory. Well, I want to show you the site by the air a little bit. You can see the petroforms a little better and kind of get your idea of a layout of how it is. See, it's not just one big open area. When you're walking it feels like it is. There's actually some trees here and there as well. So you move sort of from area to area. But see how it's all kind of in this one big circle? That's how you can kind of keep from getting lost. If you follow around the circle, you will eventually make your way back to that path and be able to get out. Lots of rocks here. Some of them are taken over by grass already. The clearer ones are really easy to see. We're kind of coming up on one of those sections here. We can see that snake in the bottom left-hand corner, but in the bottom right, see the various petroforms there? That's kind of the best spot to see some of them for the, I guess, simple to interpret ones. But as you go on in the site, there's certainly more of them, and they maybe become a little bit more abstract as you go too, but that's okay to sort of see the different takes on it. It makes you think likely they were made by, obviously, more than one person and over a different period of time too, right? Were they trying to depict something exactly the way it is, or were they trying to depict something a little more spiritual that maybe doesn't look just like another turtle? On our way back to the path, and we're going to head on out. Hopefully you've enjoyed your visit to the Bannock Point Petroforms. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to be part of the channel so you can see all our new episodes. And if you have a moment, hit the thumbs up too to let people know you enjoyed the video. The point of the video today, of course, was to kind of introduce you to the area. And I know some of you are going to say you didn't spend enough time on the spirituality, or you didn't spend enough time on what the rocks mean. Again, you really need to come and see it yourself, because when you do, that's when you'll have that more moving experience. I don't think it's really possible to capture what you're going to feel in a video. So showing you how to get here, showing you what to expect is about as good as I can do. The next part is entirely up to you. Make your way to the Bannock Point Petroforms. Bring your kids with. Make sure they have something in their pocket, maybe a little toy or something, and you'll for sure get that teachable moment of leaving something behind to honor the site and honor, the spirit and everybody else that's been here, and that itself is well worth the trip. We have many more Whiteshell videos for you as well. Check the channel, you'll see many of them. Farewell for now. From the Bannock Point Petroforms site in the heart of the Whiteshell Provincial Park in Friendly Manitoba. We'll see you next time on Travels with Bill.